Hi, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. On this episode, delighted to be talking with the author of the new book, The Sea Hides Its Dead, author Megan Bontrager. Megan, thank you for
Hello,
joining.
hello. Thanks so much for having me.
A pleasure to have you. Pleasure to have you. Always glad to be talking about horror, fantasy, sci-fi, all of the things, all of the things. Um, what got you into this world of authoring? How did you get on this path?
It's all down to my grandfather. He was a kooky, fun literary type. I have such fond memories growing up of him. This the house in rural Georgia in the middle of nowhere. The whole upper floor was just library with like a little bedroom attached. The bedroom was secondary. I kind of squeezed in wherever I could fit, but he just had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books. And in all those books were hidden away little folders with half finished manuscripts, things that he wanted to come back to. He'd written maybe like 50 books in his lifetime and he never pursued publication. He never really felt compelled to, I don't think. He just did it for the love of the game and just kind of fed me that early. And I grew up with him basically. I mean, we went to see him all the time. And so whenever I was there, he would always encourage like make believe and story times, and he would read me books. And I mean, he was reading me Shakespeare way earlier than I could possibly comprehend Shakespeare. And so it was that level of engagement with books and creating and stuff. And I used to I had like a full set of Disney princess toys, and we would go camping with them and set up a tent with like a broom and a sheet. And we would just make up stories where we would be at a summer camp with the Disney princesses, and these huge adventures would just unfold under a sheet in his living room. And he would encourage me to write them down. And so I did. And that kind of spiraled out far beyond the reach of one living room.
Love it, love it. I'm picturing like a tiny you sitting on like these stacks of books, and then a great story of continuing his notes and work in the world of writing.
Absolutely. I mean, he one of the last books that he ever started. I don't actually know if he ever finished it. I was a character, and it was little tiny me. He'd written me young, me, and I was a horse girl. I guess was is probably not. You're never not a horse girl if you are one at any point. Little me with a horse, going on adventures, and it was one of the last things he ever showed me that he was working on. And so it was always just very, it wasn't drip fed to me. It was just immediately in the world of books. And he made me a part of it immediately. It wasn't like something that he was bestowing upon me and setting me free. It was, he was bringing me into this world that he loved so much, and it just felt natural to tumble into it.
Nice, nice. Your work explores so much with nature, with communing with nature and human nature. Are you curious about those connections? What sparks some of those themes and explorations for you?
Well, the setting of the book felt pretty natural because I had just moved with my husband to South Dublin, and we were right on the coast. And so, I mean, no matter what I did, I could always hear the sea. And I got really into the local culture of, going swimming in the Irish Sea, even in the dead of winter. Although calling it swimming for me was probably pretty generous. It was more like taking a few steps in, going, huh, and then leaving. But I
Mm-hmm.
did my best. Um, and at the same time, this is going to sound so not connected, but I promise it is. I was getting into Dungeons and Dragons for the first time.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was living in this very um, windy, briny environment while also, learning about how interactive storytelling can open up these huge avenues for character creation and the way that stories can spiral and go places that you never expected. And it kind of felt natural that when I was getting so obsessively into Dungeons and Dragons, I would try to write a book where everything was so character first.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just damp all the time from being in Ireland. So it felt like the sea was the natural place to put it.
Yeah, yeah. At what point did you know the Sea Hides It's Dead that this would be the book? And anything that people should know about it that haven't checked it out or read about it so far?
Well, I really didn't think that it would be the book that would, get me going in this career path. I don't think anyone is ever really like, this is the one, because then if you do think this is the one, you're setting yourself up. But
Mhm.
I hated this book at first. I really did. And I hate saying that because it's a book, I can say, I guess. But it's deeply personal. The it deals with a lot of, eldritch horror and cults and, very Descent-esque survival horror moments versus monsters and all that. But it's also very deeply about Caroline, the protagonist, and her journey to wiggle out from under the boulder of a narcissistic parent and terminal people pleasing, and really finding herself. So I think that's something that people don't expect a lot going into the book because it's very much marketed as, everybody is damp and having a bad time, and it's survival horror, and there's monsters and they're being chased, and it's eldritch horrors, but it is very much a character study and an examination of what people have to do sometimes to get out from under those narcissistic umbrellas.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, it's so character focused and so character forward, and I'm going to use the word Jungian here, as I told you I would. There's this idea of like diving into who you are and kind of exploring and facing the monstrous. Curious about how you got into those characters and what it was like to tap into that part of the story.
Well, when I first started drafting, I knew that it needed to be character first, and the setting and the plot would build out from around the core group, because it started out as a pretty much a beat for beat Dante's Inferno retelling,
Hmm.
and it has those beats and that color now, but it's kind of gone beyond that. But I was also at the time starting therapy for the first time in my life. And so the introspection was being kind of forced onto me. um, and my therapist had used the term your shadow self a lot. And that all felt very eldritch and dramatic until he explained to me what it actually meant. Um, and sometimes therapists have you do inner child work or like talk to yourself, or what would you say to yourself, stuff like that. So it made me think, what if these people literally were forced to confront themselves removed from themselves? What would that help them self actualize? What would it help them confront? What would they do if they were confronted face to face with the literal physical manifestation of the shadow that hangs over them? So I started with the structure of, the different layers of hell, the different sins. At first, each character was specifically, and maybe a little too shoehorned, a sin. It was all very black and white. There were more characters than there are now. I had to cut some of them, or else it would have been a really long book. Um, and I started with, okay, if this character is ascribed to this layer of hell, what sin are we working with? And then how can we make that work in a way where it can exist physically in an ever changing space that exists solely to accommodate that kind of self reflection?
Nice, nice. Has Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop role-playing games have those continued to be part of your creative process?
Absolutely. It's not only is it a super fun outlet for me to just put angst into whenever I need to, but it helped me figure out ways to uh, make characters more colorful and give them flaws that aren't there just for the sake of having some kind of arbitrary, you know, dark backstory moment. But
Mhm.
everything, every positive, negative, neutral facet of like your D&D character is going to play in an interesting way with your friend's D&D character. So how does that, translate into how would this group of people, were they all D&D characters? How would they all interact with each other? I mean, it was even so deep that when I was in edits after my agent had convinced me that the book was good enough to edit. I actually went and I made all of the characters on D&D Beyond, not sponsored. Please sponsor me. I made them all. I gave them character sheets, and it I don't know, making them wizards and paladins and stuff was a fun way to kind of lighten the mental load of editing it and the book in general. But it was also cool to really think about their personalities in terms of their D&D class,
Mhm.
even if it wasn't a one-to-one fit. It was just a fun little exercise.
Cool, cool, very cool. What captivates you about eldritch horror and horror in general?
I particularly love eldritch horror and cosmic horror because I feel like sometimes it seems like a little bit of a misunderstood genre because it's like, how can something that you can't even comprehend, how can that be scary? But that is the scariest thing. It's something is so much bigger and greater than us as humans, as people. But what captivates me about this genre is that it's in human nature to try anyway. And so no matter how big something is or how horrible something may seem, humans are just gonna try, whether or not it goes poorly or goes well. And I feel like, I mean, horror is always going to be timely and it's always going to be a great outlet for exploring things that I think other genres can't really, because, in horror, you can't just magic away the scary thing, you have to deal with it. And so when the scary thing is something that seems so much bigger and older and more powerful and more insurmountable than anything that any one person or any one group of people could ever overcome, reading about people trying to overcome it anyway, it just feels really powerful, especially given what we're all going through right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. What is next for you? What is next in the creative path, and where can we find out more?
Well, my next book out with Orbit is called Where Dead Things Grow. It is a swampy Southern Gothic horror romance set in Okefenokee Swamp in South Georgia, which is a very oddly specific pull, but I grew up kind of in that area, so I know it well. But that's 2027 with Orbit. I don't have an official date yet, so I'm just kind of vaguely throwing it at next year and seeing what'll stick.
Fantastic. And you have an author site.
I
Any
do.
specific nods there or social media spaces, any of those kind of places that we should know about?
Yes, I am at Meg Bontra pretty much everywhere, except for TikTok, where I am regrettably book hag. I feel like I can't change it now. It's just I am the book hag now. My website is also megbontra.com. I'm very bad at keeping it updated. I'm mostly on socials yapping. That's where the news breaks first.
All right, all right. Well, many thanks, Megan. Glad to have you back anytime. Glad to talk Southern Gothic in the future as well.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
may the work continue.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you.